Welcome to everybody who's joined the feed. It's been a fantastic couple of days already, and I've really enjoyed hearing the various contributions and just reflecting on how things have looked in terms of what we're seeing. So, by way of a quick introduction, my name is Stephen Buck, and I lead the people science practice for the EMEA region at Glint. And what a month it's been. I'm determined not to say the word unprecedented, so I'll just get that out of the way right away. And what I will do, however, is give you a little bit of a change of plan, which was originally I was going to talk about people success and integrated talent management and all these fun things that we would normally talk about at this event. But instead, I'm going to talk about some of the insights that we have gleaned at Glint in the last month or so, and just give you some indication of the very, very freshest results that we're amalgamating at the moment. What we've done is we've basically launched a set of items at Glint, and since the 18th of March, we've collected a simply vast number of data points. Like many businesses in this field, we were probably a bit concerned that everything would suddenly drop off and that people stop surveying, and we found actually that what's changed is the content of the survey. So those people who had joined us even, or those people who have been with us for a while looking at running an employee survey, very quickly pivoted and changed the content of what they were doing. So what it means is that we were able to develop a set of items, either things from our existing database or to develop some new ones that really measured the current pulse, the current feeling of where organizations are. Looking at some of the things that perhaps may have been more hygiene factors in the past that have suddenly become right at the top of mind for employees and managers and organizations alike. So we launched a multi-topic item set. You can see some of the items, the core items on the right-hand side of your screen right now. So things like support, well-being, resources, prioritization, connection. We've heard these topics very many times today and yesterday. We have an extended item bank for those of people who want to go into things in a little bit more detail. But what's really salient is that the numbers on the left-hand side is since the 18th of March, we've collected 2.5 million data points from organizations. So that's from 136 unique companies, and that's 610,000 surveys, individual surveys from employees around the world. So just let that sink in for a moment, the size of this data set and indeed the time scale that we've collected that in. This is not a set of organizations who are afraid to ask their employees what they think. Response rates have been incredibly high, and the response also has been incredibly high as well. So what have we actually learned? There's been a few things that I've seen as well today that have been consistent with some of these findings. One of the first things that we've noticed is that results are really positive, and there's a number of different thoughts as to why that might be. Are people genuinely doing a really good job? Are people afraid to say negative things in case they're worried about things like job security? But nevertheless, we are seeing some consistencies. We're seeing that 91% of people think that their team take the proper precautions. So this is a here and now in front of me type statistic. But 83% feel that their company is working to support a sense of connection. Now that's one of the lowest scores that we see in this distress item set. And even then it's 83% of employees responding favorably. On the right, you can see satisfaction with things like company communication. Most people know what they should be focusing on as individuals. Most people are satisfied with their company's response, although we're seeing those results changing as we continue to do things like weekly or bi-weekly or monthly pulses with organizations. So those things are changing, but these findings were fresh as of this morning. So people are feeling grateful, generally speaking, but that connection side of things and really that navigation of the way people are working is very much top of mind. One of the things that Glint is famous for is our narrative intelligence, and that is basically taking verbatim comments that are written by employees around when they do their surveys. They have the opportunity to answer things like, "How are you doing?" Very, very simple, aligned with our philosophy of keeping things relatable and aligned to the way people speak on a daily basis. We found some really, really stunning findings from the narrative intelligence. So typically, what we would see is that we we push these things, all the comments through the narrative intelligence process at Glint. And what happens is it doesn't just take the questions and the comments themselves and codify them according to some kind of frequency, i.e. how many times do people say the word communication. What it also does, it uses a taxonomy that says, in a sentence that may contain several topics, how can we tease apart the individual topics that people are talking about? And more importantly, are they positive, neutral, or negative in sentiment? So if I say I'm extremely proud to work for my company, as people do, that would be a positive sentiment. So we've grouped the comments into three main buckets here. So we see predominantly people are talking about communication, around remote working, and around infrastructure. So these are topics that we've seen emerge a number of times. But people seem to be wondering, how do I keep getting my work done in this new world of work? And that, of course, applies very, very different for people that have been made redundant, for people who have been furloughed, for people who are still going to an office. We've been able to segment them by the different demographics as well. But those are the topics that we're seeing. The sense of connectivity between those topics is indicated by the thickness of the lines between them. So three main topic areas there. So how are employees feeling? They're feeling, when we look at the number of positive comments, the percentage of comments on pride, for example, which are positive, is 83%. So 83% of all the comments that we see on this topic are positive in sentiment. People are positive about support, about vision, about the sense of belonging with their organization. So these are all a lot of things that are quite affective, but think about the sense of vision, how important it is when you're asking about whether employees should feel connected to the sense of purpose of their organization. Absolutely, now more than ever. When we look at the negative comments, then of course, when people are concerned about staffing, they're concerned about work levels, they're concerned about adjusting, as we've heard many times today. Increasingly, people are concerned about burnouts, about drawing the line between the blurred line, if you like, between their home and their work life is very, very prominent for people, particularly the negative sentiment. But we find that cultural characteristics are very much a sense of positivity for employees, so organizational culture, but the burden of work is actually growing as we continue to release these surveys and get the data back. The other thing that's of interest, and I've got a couple of things, and then I'll be on time for you, Al. What we've really looked at is things like some of the demographics. So, for example, are managers viewing this whole thing differently to the individual contributors? And the answer is yes, they are. The concerns are quite different. So ICs, or individual contributors or employees, are 18 percentage points higher on positivity about clarity of prioritization, for example. Managers we think are struggling to get their own priorities straight in terms of their own workload, in terms of the sense of the business, but also for their employees as well. So we see on the right-hand side the list of things that people are most concerned about. And the top four concerns really are identical, but whether or not you're a manager or an IC. Performance evaluation, interestingly enough, is more of a concern for managers, and getting flexible working time or time off is more of a concern for individual contributors. So the final insight that I wanted to show you then is that managers are much more focused on the business than ICs, whereas individual contributors are more worried about the personal experience and how effective they can be. So things, when we look at what managers are talking about, they're talking about the future state of the business, around competition, around continuing to innovate. Interestingly, in today's topic, innovation, and vision for the future. So they're thinking a little bit more strategically, whereas employees are more concerned about things like motivation, whether they recommend the company as a great place to work, this idea of advocacy, and a sense of accomplishment. So that's some really a very, very whistle-stop tour through some very, very extensive findings that we've been collating at Glint. Do have a look at our chapter on the PAFOW website. There's a whole load of content there. We're happy to talk to you more about that. And that's the biggest sales pitch I'm going to do in this meeting. But I really wanted to talk about some of these insights from our extensive research. And with that, I'll pass back to you, Al. Thank you very much.